Hello and welcome to the Craftucation Christmas special. So we know that we're not launching until the middle of January, but we couldn't resist doing a little something this side of Christmas. So we wanted to do a little tutorial on how to make these needle felted fairies. So they're dead easy and you can just put a little bit of thread through there and hang them from your Christmas tree or anywhere else that you fancy. So you can, as you can see, you can make different sizes, and all you need is a foam pad, a felting needle. I would suggest either a 36 gauge triangular or a 38 gauge star, and a selection of wool rovings. So you want it to be wool. I would suggest either a merino or Corriedale blend, and you want it to be presented in roving, which is sort of these long strips. And you're going to need a couple of different colours, unless you want to make an entirely one colour fairy, which is fine. And I'm putting in a little bit of this as well, which is some wool blended with Angelina Sparkle, just to give it that little bit of Christmas zhuzh. So let's get started. Right, so first thing we're going to do is start making her head and her body. So I've got some lovely variegated roving here. It's not a very long piece, so what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to split it down the middle, just like that, so that you end up with sort of a thinner, long piece. So next thing we're going to do is just tie a knot in the middle. I'm going to pull it tight, or tightish, so you end up with sort of a nice smooth face. So I'll just fold the back round, and that is going to be your fairy's head. So the next thing we do, I'm going to get just a little bit of this, so just take a few strands out of the end, and we're just going to wrap that around her neck like that. And then take your felting needle, very carefully, just do a few pokes in, just round her neck, just to secure it all in place. So make sure when you're doing this, you're poking down into the mat and keeping your fingers well and truly out the way. You should always be trying to go straight down with your felting needle. You don't want to go in at an angle, because if you do that, it's much more easy to pull up at a slightly different angle and break your needle. So always straight up and down as much as possible, and we'll just secure that there. So these fairies are not heavily felted, they're quite sort of floaty and ethereal, so you don't need to worry too much if this is your first time doing felting. It's absolutely not a problem. Add a little bit of extra fluff there to move that out of the way. Okay, so the next job is that she needs some arms. So I usually use the same colour that I'm using for her body and her head, but you don't have to. If you'd like a different colour, then please feel free. I'm going to take this sort of slightly orangier bit from this side and go. So again, I've just pulled it down, and it doesn't need to be as long as this though, so I'm going to pull it apart. So when you're pulling fibre, remember that each bit is the length of the fibre. So if you hold it too close together and try to pull, it's not going to move. You've got to hold your hands far apart and then pull, and it'll just come to pieces. So dead easy. I'm just going to flop up the front there and just lay that in there like that and fold that back down. Now, before we make her waist, I'm going to put a little dress on her. So you don't have to. This one doesn't. This one just has a waistband there. But this one, as you can see, it's got a little bit of sparkle coming round, just for almost a bit like an apron or something like that. Just adds a little bit. So I'm going to get a bit of my silvery sparkle, and again, because this is a small fairy, I don't need lots of it. I'm just going to take a strip off one side, and I don't think I'll need all of the length as well, but I'll sort that after. So it goes behind her head and then it crosses over like that. So what I need to do, oh sorry, I'm knocking the gadget. So what we need to do now is to create a waist for her. So I'm going to get another, like we did with the neck, another bit of fibre here, and I'm just going to wrap it round, minding her arms out the way. There we go, it just holds everything in place, and we can then get our felting needle, and the same as we did around the neck, we're just going to do some little pokes just to secure everything in place and make sure that she doesn't come to pieces. There we go. So her arms are a bit too long, so what we're going to do, going to tie a knot where we want her hands to be. Okay, that's one. Move it slightly that way, there we go. And the other one. There we go. So ordinarily my big rule is you don't chop fibres, but for these hands actually it works really well if you do. The reason I say you never chop it is because once you've chopped it, it doesn't like felting again. So this is sort of the exception. There we go. So she's got some little hands there now. I think her dress is maybe just a little bit too long. So again, just holding far apart, I'm just going to pull, and that comes off. So she's starting to take shape. All she's missing really are some wings and some hair. So we're going to do the wings first. So I'm going to give my fairy some purple wings with a little bit of the silver sparkle. So again, I'm just going to take a bit off the side of this purple, but unlike what we've done before, I'm going to sort of fluff it out, spread out all the fibres, make it nice and floaty. If you've got a bit that's too long, then again just hold your hands apart and pull a bit off. Right. So I've laid it out a bit, so now I'm going to start shaping it. So I want it to come in the middle. So we're just going to pinch it in, and I'm going to lay it out in a wing shape like that, and with just a few strands of this silver in there, just because it's Christmas and because fairies need to sparkle. There we go. If you had a different sort of accent fibre, you could put that on as well. So if you had some sari silk or something like that, you could put a bit of that on if you wanted to. But it does need to be predominantly wool, otherwise it won't felt. So same as we've done before, we're just going to straight up and down with the needle, but we're just going to do it gently all the way over. So it doesn't take much, just little bits all the way over. Make sure you do that middle section. Now, we're only doing it gently because we want it to hold together but still keep that sort of floaty fairy quality. So we're going to pull up from the middle so that it all stays together, turn it over, and do the same on the back. We keep picking it up and turning it over because otherwise you'll find that it becomes a permanent fixture of your foam pad, and you will just permanently have wings attached to your foam pad. So keep picking it up and turning it over. Make sure that it's behaving the way you want it to. If you want to sort of rearrange the fibres a little bit, you can do that. And just keep going a few more times until you feel like they are holding together. And remember, it's quite thin, you don't need to go far, so there's no point sticking it all the way down into your foam pad because this isn't very thick, so you only need to concentrate on felting the wool, not the pad itself. I think we're getting there. They are starting to hold together. I'm going to make mine just a little bit more solid than that. So you can pick them up and see whether they stay up a bit when you hold them. Mine are still quite droopy. So I'm just going to keep going a little bit. So the more you felt it, the more solid they will get. Make sure you keep your fingers out of the way. Oh, I think we're nearly there now. I'll just do one more thing on the back here and then attach them. There we go. So as I said, they're not solidly felted. It's not not as solid as you would expect it to be if you were making little animals or anything like that, but it's just enough that it will hold together. So all you do, place it on her back, and we're just going to gently felt up through the middle. So you're trying not to go the whole way through, because if you do that you might end up with bits of wings sticking through her front where you've made the bodice of her dress. So you don't want that. You're just doing gentle pokes just in through the back. I will make the point, these are not toys, these are for decorative use only. Then they're not designed to be played with, they won't stand up to it. There we go. So here we are, her wings are now in place. Oops, dropping it. Her wings are now in place like that. So next she needs some hair. I like plaiting my fairy's hair. I think it looks quite nice, but you can do pretty much any hairstyle you like. If you have any curly wool locks and things, you can just have sort of curly hair like this one has. Whatever you're doing, the starting technique is the same. So I'm going to go with some lovely gold hair on my fairy, because I think it tones in nicely with her dress. So I'm just going to separate this out a little bit, because this fibre I've got here is a little bit on the old side. So I'm going to take that bit off there. Right, so let's fold it so that you've got a nice edge, and just place it where her hairline would be. And again, very gently with your felting needle and keeping your fingers out the way, just start to attach it. It's just little pokes. If it's in slightly the wrong place, you can move it slightly. Alright, don't worry about doing the whole of her head at the minute, because we're going to do her hairstyle first and then we'll finish felting it in. So as I say, I like doing a plait, so I'm going to separate the fibres into 3. And just start plaiting as you would with anything else. Ended up with some slightly long loose bits at the end, so again you can just pull those off. And when you get down as far as you want to, then you're just going to use the same technique that you did with the neck and the waist. So get just a few threads And we're just going to use it like a hairband. Just wrap it round. Don't worry if it's a little bit messy, because you can sort that with the felting needle. Okay, so if you get your needle and you can just do a few pokes. Make sure you pick it up and turn it round and don't end up with a hairpiece stuck to your thing. Right, so she looks a little bit interesting at the moment, so now that we've done that, we're going to finish felting in her hair. So just poke it with the needle and the wool will contract wherever you poke. It'll attach itself to her head. So again, this isn't sort of solidly felting, this is just enough to hold it together. If you end up with bits like that don't look right, you can just fold them and keep poking them until they look the way you want them to. Just make sure that you keep your fingers out of the way. So there we go. Just do a little bit more there. There we have your fairy. So if you're wanting to hang her up, then take a needle and thread and all you need to do is just poke through like that, and I would suggest using thinner cotton than this, but I didn't think you'd be able to see if I did. There we go. And then she can hang up like that from your Christmas tree or your window or wherever you might like to hang her. And she'll look all sparkly in the lights. So there you go. Merry Christmas.